He found it lying on the ground, a wallet thick with cash. No cameras, no witnesses. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. Shivering under a flickering street lamp, he found a wallet stuffed with cash. Just one bill could have meant a warm bed, but instead, he walked 3 miles to return it. What happened next changed his life forever. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment. And let us know you believe in kindness too, because this story might just restore your faith in humanity. The cold bit through the threadbare hoodie like tiny needles. His breath rose in shaky puffs as he sat curled up on the edge of a bus stop bench, arms tucked into himself, trying to disappear into his own skin. People pass him, some quick glances, most with none, just a shape on the edge of their world. Forgotten, out of place, unimportant. Mason hadn't always been homeless, but that was months ago now. A job lost, a rent payment missed, a life that cracked quietly beneath the weight of just one more bad day. Now, the world looked at him like he was nothing more than an inconvenience. He counted the coins in his pocket. 2 quarters, a dime, 3 pennies. Not enough for a sandwich. Not even close. He stood up joint stiff and walked slowly down the sidewalk. His shoes were soaked through, the soles separating from the fabric. Every step squished, every step hurt. He wasn't sure where he was going, just away from the cold, the hunger, the ache. Then he saw it. A wallet, leather, thick, just lying there on the edge of the curb near a cafe's outdoor seating. He looked around. No one else had noticed it. The cafe was mostly empty. The traffic was light. It was just sitting there, waiting. He knelt down, heart racing. The wallet was smooth, clean, expensive. Inside, crisp $100 bills, at least a dozen, maybe more. Cards, IDs, a name, Derek Jameson, a platinum credit card, a black business card with gold print. Mason's hands trembled. He could vanish. Use the money for a motel, food, warm socks, even a shower. For the first time in months, he could feel human again. But something deeper whispered from the back of his mind, a voice he hadn't heard in a while. Do the right thing, even if no one's watching. He stood frozen for several long seconds. The cash practically screamed at him, but he forced himself to close the wallet and slide it into the inside pocket of his hoodie. He had to give it back. He walked 3 miles across the city to the address on the ID, a towering building with tinted windows and clean suits walking in and out without looking up. He knew he didn't belong there. He stood at the front desk, drenched and shivering, and said quietly, I found this. I think it belongs to someone who works here. The receptionist, a young woman with too much eyeliner and not enough patience, looked at him like he'd crawled out of the gutter. Who are you? I'm nobody, he muttered. Just someone who didn't want to keep something that wasn't his. She hesitated, eyes narrowing, then took the wallet and vanished into the elevator without a thank you. He turned and left. By the time Derek Jameson came rushing into the lobby, breathless, the man who returned the wallet was long gone. Who was he? Derek asked. The receptionist shrugged. Some homeless guy. I didn't get a name. Derek stood there, wallet in hand, staring out the glass doors. For the first time all week, the CEO of a multimillion-dollar firm felt like he didn't understand the world at all, because inside the wallet, untouched, was over $2,000 in cash. Later that evening, Mason sat on the edge of a loading dock behind a grocery store, chewing slowly through a bruised apple a stock boy had tossed his way. The city hummed around him, neon lights, rushing cabs, the occasional siren. He didn't expect anything from the world, especially not kindness, which is why, when a black SUV rolled up to the alley and stopped, he stood slowly, ready to run. But the man who stepped out wasn't angry. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't security. He was clean-cut in his early 40s, with tired eyes and expensive shoes. He held the wallet in one hand. Is your name Mason? Mason blinked. Yeah. How do you know that? The man smiled just slightly. The receptionist said you mentioned it. Said you looked like you hadn't slept in days. Mason looked down at his shoes. I didn't expect anything. I just thought it was the right thing. Derek stepped forward and handed him something else. A sealed envelope. "What's this?" "Something that belongs to you," Derek said quietly. "And a dinner, if you'll come with me. No strings." Mason hesitated. His stomach ached. His pride flared. But something in the man's voice didn't feel like pity. It felt like recognition. He nodded. The restaurant was warm and smelled like heaven. Mason kept his coat on. He felt like an imposter, just sitting at the table. But Derek didn't treat him like one. He asked about his life. Listened. Didn't interrupt. Not even once. They talked for 2 hours. About choices. Regrets. Second chances. When Mason got up to leave, Derek stood with him. "You have a place to sleep tonight?" Mason shook his head. "You do now," Derek said, and handed him a key card with a hotel address printed on it. "I'll cover it for as long as you need to get back on your feet." Mason's throat clenched. He didn't know what to say. "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Derek looked at him, eyes steady. "Because years ago I lost everything too. And someone helped me when they didn't have to. I've been waiting to pass that forward ever since. And today, you reminded me of who I used to be." Mason walked into the hotel lobby later that night, feeling like he might float right through the floor. The clerk handed him a room key without hesitation. No stares, no judgment, just welcome. When he got to the room, he sat on the bed in silence for almost an hour. Then, finally, he opened the envelope Derek had given him. Inside was a business card, a phone number, a handwritten note that said, "If you want to work, if you're ready to get your life back, I've got a place for you." One favor turned into the stubble on his chin made him look older than 32. He splashed cold water on his face, brushed his teeth with a cheap disposable toothbrush the hotel kept near the ice machine, and tried to press down his wild hair with his palms. He picked up the phone 3 times to call Derek, then put it down again. What if this was a mistake? He'd spent so long invisible that being seen now felt dangerous. But sometime around 10:47 a.m., Mason took a breath, picked up the phone, and dialed. Derek Jameson's office. A voice answered. This is Mason. I think he said call." The voice changed tone instantly. "Hold 1 moment, please." 3 seconds later, Derek's voice came through, warm and clear. "You called. I was hoping you would." I don't have anything to wear. For, like, a real job." "Don't worry about that," Derek replied. "Just meet me at this address. Noon. It's not a job interview. It's a conversation." 2 hours later, Mason stood outside a smaller building on the east side of town. Brick walls, wide windows, and a faded sign that read, Eastgate Community Center. Derek was already there, dressed down in jeans and a soft flannel. He waved Mason over and led him inside. The center wasn't fancy. It was clean, warm, and buzzing with quiet energy. A few kids played in the corner. 2 women packed food boxes behind folding tables. An older man mopped the hallway with humming lips. Derek turned to him. "You ever worked janitorial?" Mason nodded slowly. "A few years back, before everything. We're short 1 man here. It's not much. Afternoons mostly floors, light maintenance. It pays weekly and the staff's kind. It's a place to start, not finish. Think you can handle that?" Mason hesitated. "You'd vouch for me? Just like that?" Derek's voice softened. "You didn't steal from me when no one was watching. That tells me more than any resume ever could." Mason blinked. His throat was tight. Then, "Yeah, I can handle it." That night he slept, not because the bed was soft, but because, for the first time in years, he knew where he had to be in the morning. The next few weeks passed in quiet motion. Mason mopped, wiped, repaired. He learned the names of the staff, showed up early, never complained. His shoes were still cracked, but they carried him forward every day with more certainty than the last. Some afternoons, he'd linger in the storage closet just to breathe and remind himself this was real. One Friday, as he scrubbed handprints off the hallway glass, a girl of about 9 ran past, slipped slightly, and laughed as she caught her balance. Her mother followed close behind, apologizing with a tired smile. "You're the one who keeps this place looking good," she said kindly. Mason simply nodded. Try my best. He wasn't used to being spoken to like he mattered, but here he was starting to believe he did. On payday, Derek met him in the break room with an envelope. You've earned this, he said. Mason took it slowly, hands trembling, not just from the money, though he needed it desperately, but from what it represented. Trust, progress, a name on a ledger again. As he turned to leave, Derek called out, There's one more thing. Mason turned. You got anywhere permanent to stay yet? Mason shook his head, still using the hotel. Grateful for it, but Derek smiled. I might have something better. He handed him a key ring with a single silver key and a folded sheet of paper. There's a duplex 2 blocks from here. It's small but clean. Need someone to watch the place. Consider it yours, rent-free, utilities covered, for as long as you keep showing up like you have. Mason stared at him, stunned. I don't know what to say. You already said it the day you returned that wallet. Later that night, Mason stood in the doorway of the tiny duplex. The walls were bare. The air smelled faintly of pine cleaner. The fridge hummed. The lights worked. There was a bed, a heater, a shower with hot water. He stood there for a long time, staring at the key in his hand. Then he crossed the threshold and closed the door behind him. This wasn't a shelter. This wasn't a cot at a center. This was his. He sank to the floor, back against the wall, and cried quietly into his sleeve. Not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming weight of hope. In the weeks that followed, he bought second-hand clothes from a thrift store, a new pair of work boots from a clearance rack, a coffee maker from a donation bin someone left at the community center. He made friends, real ones, and one afternoon, as the sun set through the center's wide windows, Derek stopped by the janitor's closet, leaned against the doorframe, and said, There's a reporter who wants to do a feature on someone who's turned his life around. They're calling it Second Chances. You interested? Mason laughed softly. I'm still in Act 1. Derek smiled. Yeah, but your story already has a better beginning than most endings. Mason leaned on his mop and looked out at the hallway he cleaned. He watched the kids running, the volunteers smiling, the quiet energy of a place full of good people trying their best. I don't need a headline, he said. This is enough. But deep down he knew this wasn't the end of the story. This was a turning point. And what came next would test him in ways kindness alone couldn't protect. Mason had never asked for attention. He was the kind of man who preferred to sweep the corners, not stand in them. But things had changed since the wallet, since Derek, since the story began to ripple. It started small. A local paper ran a piece titled, Homeless Man Returns Wallet, Offered Job and Home. The writer called the community center for quotes. Derek gave one, simple and heartfelt. The story went online. By the end of the week, it had over 40,000 shares. Strangers showed up at the community center just to peek in. Some donated coats. Some dropped off gift cards. Some just stared at Mason like he was a museum exhibit. He smiled politely, nodded, thanked them. But inside, something twisted. He had to return the wallet for applause. He did it because it was the right thing. But now, people looked at him like a symbol, a headline, a miracle story they could post about and feel better for 5 minutes. And not everyone believed it. It started with whispers. A volunteer with too much time on her hands and not enough warmth in her voice muttered under her breath, It's too perfect, don't you think? A homeless guy just happens to return a wallet and ends up with a house. Another one chimed in. Yeah, sound stage. PR stunt maybe. You know Derek's company just opened a new branch? Great timing. Mason heard them from the hallway. They didn't know, or didn't care. He returned to the janitor's closet, closed the door gently, and sat on the edge of a storage bin. He stared at the floor for a long time. The mop handle rested against his knee. He hadn't stolen. He hadn't lied. And still they doubted. That evening, he walked home slower than usual. The wind had picked up, biting at his cheeks. His key turned in the duplex lock with a soft click. The room was warm, but his hands stayed cold. He didn't eat, just sat in the chair by the window, the street lamp casting long shadows across the floor. The next day, a man in a blazer approached him during his shift. "Hey, you're the guy from that story, right? Mason?" Mason nodded slowly, unsure. The man smiled too wide. "Cool, cool. I'm shooting a documentary on comeback stories. Thought you might want to be in it. Think Netflix meets Redemption. What do you say?" Mason stared at him for a moment, then shook his head. "I'm not interested." The man's smile faltered. "Come on, this is your shot. You could go viral. This is the kind of stuff people eat up." "I didn't do it for people to eat up." The man blinked, then scoffed. "Suit yourself." He left, the echo of his shoes trailing down the hallway, like a bad memory. That night, Mason sat across from Derek in the break room. Derek could see it in his face. "They're talking, aren't they?" Mason asked, his voice low. Derek leaned forward. "Let them talk. You did what was right. That's all that matters." "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be a hero. His voice caught. "I just didn't want to lose the part of me that still knew what honesty felt like." Derek nodded slowly. "And that's exactly why they don't get to define you." Mason looked away. "You ever feel like being noticed hurts more than being invisible?" Derek didn't answer for a moment, then quietly said, "Every day. But that doesn't mean we disappear. It means we stand taller." The next morning, a small envelope slid under Mason's door. No name, just his address scribbled in rushed handwriting. He opened it carefully. Inside was a folded sheet of paper and a $10 bill. The note said, "I saw the story. I've been sober for 2 weeks, but today I wanted to quit. Then I read about you. I'm keeping the 10 in my wallet, and I'm not touching it. Because if you can do the right thing when you had nothing, I can do the right thing too." Mason stared at the paper, the corners trembling in his hands. He folded it back, pressed it flat, and tucked it into his drawer. The story wasn't his anymore. It was bigger now, and maybe that was okay. One Sunday afternoon, while wiping down the hallway rails, Mason heard his name. A woman approached slowly, her arms tight around herself. She looked like she hadn't slept. "My son, he ran away last month. He's 17. Couch surfing. Says the system failed him. He doesn't trust anybody anymore." Mason paused. "I read your story to him," she continued. "Didn't think he was listening. But last night he came home. Quiet. Sat at the table. Said maybe not everybody leaves." Her voice cracked. "Thank you. I just wanted you to know what it did. What you did." Mason didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, softly, like a bow to something bigger than both of them. Later that evening, he walked to the roof of the duplex. The sky was soft and dark, dotted with city lights and hints of stars. He sat on the edge, legs dangling over the ledge, watching the cars blur past below. He had no headline for this moment, no viral caption, no applause, but he had peace. And that was worth everything. The rooftop was quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but full of all the moments that used to hurt, now folded into something softer. Mason sat on the ledge, elbows on his knees, watching a city he once drifted through like a ghost. Downstairs, the world moved on cars' footsteps, voices. But here he could breathe. He didn't expect the knock. Soft, hesitant. It came from the door that led back inside. He turned. Derek stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes steady. "You got a visitor," he said gently. Mason raised an eyebrow. "This late?" "She said she knew you from before." Mason's breath caught. He stood slowly, legs heavy with questions. Down the stairs, through the hallway, past the front door. She sat on the steps outside. Her coat was worn, her hair tied back the way he remembered from a colder time. "Jenna?" She looked up. Her smile was tired, but real. "Hey, stranger." They hadn't seen each other in almost 2 years. Not since eviction notices, and too many fights about bills, and nowhere left to go. "You look," she paused. "Better. You look okay." Mason sat beside her. "I am now." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. "I saw the story. Didn't believe it at first. Thought No way that's my Mason. He smiled faintly. Wasn't. Not back then. She turned to him, her voice trembling. I'm clean now. 3 months. Got a place. It's small but safe. He looked at her, really looked. I'm proud of you. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't come for anything. I want to say I'm sorry. For all of it. Mason nodded. Me too. They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't beg to be filled. Just shared. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small object, his old dog tag, bent, scratched, rusted around the edges. You dropped this the day we left the shelter, she whispered. I kept it. Don't know why. Maybe because it was the last piece of you I still believed in. He took it from her, his fingers brushing the edge. It didn't shine anymore, but it still carried his name. Thank you. She stood. I should go. Wait, he said. Come in. Just for a bit. It's warm. She hesitated, then nodded. They didn't talk about the past. Not in detail. They talked about small things. Her new job, the cat that showed up outside her window, the soup kitchen that served pancakes on Saturdays. And then she left. Not with tears. Not with broken goodbyes. Just a soft wave, and a look that said maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of that story either. Weeks passed. Spring softened the edges of winter. The duplex small front yard bloomed with weeds that still looked like flowers to someone who hadn't had a front yard in years. Then one day, Derek called Mason into his office at the center. There's something I want you to see. He handed over a letter, heavy cream paper, gold trim. Mason opened it slowly. It was from the mayor's office. They wanted to honor him at a local ceremony. Recognize his honesty, his transformation, his service to the community. I don't want a medal, Mason said quietly. You're not getting one, Derek replied. You're getting something better. The next week, Mason stood at a small podium in a crowded gym. Cameras clicked. Lights flashed. He wore a second-hand suit and shoes that actually fit. His hands shook. He cleared his throat. I don't know what to say. I didn't think anyone would ever ask me to stand in front of a room again, let alone for something good. I was invisible for a long time, and sometimes I think I made myself that way. But the truth is, all it took to come back was one moment, one choice, one act of kindness. Not just mine, someone else's, someone who saw me, who reminded me that I was still here, still worthy. He paused, scanning the crowd. And if someone watching this tonight feels lost, I just want to say, it doesn't end here. You're not too far gone. And sometimes the thing that saves you, it starts with a wallet on the sidewalk. People stood, clapped, not for the speech, but for the truth in it. Afterward, as Mason stood near the stage, a small boy approached him. Couldn't be older than Nate. Are you really the guy who gave back all that money? He asked. Mason nodded. The boy reached into his coat pocket and handed him something wrapped in napkin. A cookie, cracked, slightly burnt. I saved this from lunch. My mom says people like you make the world less scary. Mason knelt, smiled, and took it gently. Thank you. This means more than you know. And it did. Later that night, Mason walked home under a sky just beginning to rain. He stepped into his duplex, set the cookie on the counter, and turned on the light. Everything was still, simple. He stood by the window, looking out as the drops hit the glass in steady rhythm. He had no trophies, no riches, no headlines anymore. But he had a job, a home, his name back, and peace. And that, after everything, was more than enough.